Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Board Gamer Girl channel. My name is Natalie, and today we are going on a board game retreat in Canada. So in January, I was lucky enough to go on my very first board game retreat thanks to the lovely people at Changeling Gaming Events, Springwood Cottage Resorts, and Dining and Dragons Nick. And this was a fantastic weekend. But first, I had to get there, which after the workday, I assumed it would take me about 2.5 hours, but ended up about 4 or so thanks to Toronto traffic. So I traveled there, took a little while, but once I got there, I got to the main cabin where I met some of the staff and went over kind of what areas there were at the resort that was accessible during the weekend. And after that, I also met with Emily from Changeling Gaming Events, who helped me find my cabin because I get lost even using Google Maps and seeing my little dot go places. So anyways, very helpful. I got to my cabin and I was thinking of like a small cabin. Sometimes during each year, I try to find a cabin for my mom, my sister, and I so that we can do a barbecue or bonfire and usually end up with like some small cabins. But the number one thing I end up looking for is a large game table. And going to the cabin here, it was so large. And I was sharing the cabin with a lovely other couple that were also there. And we had a great living space, a large dining table, a large kitchen, and I unpacked some of my games and then took a little bit of a tour. There was even a hot tub on the deck. Like there were 2 decks. There was a regular covered type deck that had the hot tub there, and then there was a more covered deck, so like not like glass windows or anything, but kind of like a thicker mosquito type of net. I don't know what it's called, but it had a table and chairs there too, which of course my mind goes to summertime, being able to play games on that table. After taking a little bit of a tour, made my way down to the main cabin where all of our food was going to be served for that weekend, and most of the main board gaming set events were going to be in that cabin as well. So when I got there, I got some lovely home cooked chili and it was amazing. There was even like home Nick from Dining and Dragons, who was going to be doing all the cooking that weekend, even made homemade tortilla chips to go with the meat chili or vegetarian chili. There were different options for variety of different foods that people could eat or not eat. That was so good after such a long drive to get there. And then again, because it was pretty late when I arrived, so I took out caution signs and introduced that to a few of the people along with Jeremy and Emily who run Changeling Gaming Events and were putting on this weekend. So we had a few laughs with that one and it was well enjoyed. And I headed home for the night to get my stuff set up and have a good sleep. So I got some sleep and then woke up early Saturday and got to work on checking out the schedule and itinerary that Changeling Gaming had set up for that day. So prior to arrival, first of all, Dragons and Dining gave us a whole slew of options for all of the meals that would be provided. So the first meal of the day was just going to be the continental breakfast. So a bunch of pastries, muffins, fruits, juices, coffee, tea, all provided for that day. And I didn't get to go to all of the activities because there was a slew of items that you could participate in, including Blood on the Clocktower, which is why it's here with me. It's not just a random box to be like, well, Natalie, what are you doing? This box has nothing to do with the retreat, but oh, it does. Anyways, Back to our regularly scheduled programming. So Saturday morning, there was the continental breakfast, but even before then, some people were even able to go on a group hike around the grounds. As well, there was Crokicurl. So if you already know about the name Crokinole, I believe it's a Canadian game, and it's kind of one of those old school board looking games. I got one so that it was a game that was accessible for my family. So Crokicurl is a game, and it's got a board, and it's got different circles that have different score points within them for your different tokens, which are just circular. They look like curling stones, but they're little wooden things that you flick from the edge of your board, and you try to get within the different scoring levels of the circles around. So I think it's typically the outer one is 5, the inner one is 10, the most central one is 15, and if you get into the one little circular hole, you will get a 20-point one for that stone. And the inner circle is also full of just these little like sticks or metal sticks that kind of guard that inner sanctuary area. So this game, Crokinole, they put on an ice rink as a life-size version of Crokinole, but on ice, and you'll actually use those curling stones. They also had the lake that I got to see for the first time that morning, and they were able to even shovel some of the snow that had accumulated so that people could even go skating, which is neat. I I skate and I can skate, but my feet get very, very cold doing any kind of snow sports. So there was breakfast, and after that, there was a Blood on the Clocktower game, which myself and a couple of individuals were able to go and see for a little bit. It was an introductory game for Trouble Brewing. And if you didn't already know, I used to play Blood on the Clocktower almost weekly on Twitch for about 6 months, and it was the main game that I used to play at nights during conventions. So the last time I had actually played Blood on the Clocktower was Origins 2023, and I was probably a little bit more quiet than I usually am, and I got the Slayer. And I'm used to never seeing the Slayer use their ability before they die or having it not work. So the Slayer ability in Blood on the Clocktower, which is a social deduction game, is part of the good team, and you're trying to use your ability to find the evil team, which is usually the demon and minions, but the Slayer specifically can take one shot during the game, during the day, and tell the storyteller that they would like to slay this person and hope that it's a demon. So what happened was I was noticing Nelson, who is Nelson all over, or Nelson all over cards, and I went to shoot him, and it sounded like he was the demon from what the storyteller was saying at that point. Everyone jumped up except for one person, unfortunately, and we still continued on to the next day. So we could automatically assume that there was a Scarlet Woman, which whatever demon, if they have a minion that is a Scarlet Woman, that the demon can pass on to the Scarlet Woman and they become the new head of the evil team. So by the next day, we were able to kill the demon and win the game. So with that being an epic conclusion to playing Blood on the Clocktower, I kind of got a bit nervous to try it again. I definitely, one, had to go see it because I needed to refresh myself, and then on Sunday, I did take part in a wild script, which I will talk about a little bit later when we talk about Sunday. But for this one, I went to just kind of refresh myself by watching a bit of the game, as there were people from the resort who played, there were newbies who played, there were intermediate players that played, and I got to see Jeremy in action for the first time as the storyteller for Blood on the Clocktower, which was great. So after watching some of that, myself and a couple of others went to go play some board games that they had brought with them. We took a peek at the games cabin, which was like a large cabin and had a whole bunch of different functions, but it had 800 games. And like I said, they had new games that had just come in that I hadn't seen myself yet. So Civolution SETI hadn't come in for me yet. There was Skyrise that they had, which I've wanted to play. We didn't play those ones. They did bring the couple that was staying in the cottage with me, brought a copy of Near and Far, which I had never played before, but having played Sleeping God, Rome, and Creature Caravan, and all of those being super fantastic experiences. So I was really excited to be able to get a chance at Now or Never. No, Near and Far, Near and Far. There are so many. I'm sorry. So before we got to gaming, we actually had some lunch. So where we went to game for the rest of the afternoon was at the main cabin, which I talked about before. But oh my God, Nick did it again. I can't remember what the other options were, just what I got. And it was a whiskey barbecue chicken wrap with a side of like shoestring fries that I got. I think you could have fries, you could have a soup as a side, but that whiskey chicken it might have been my favorite thing from the weekend. I mean, all the things were great, and I keep salivating regardless. But the whiskey barbecue chicken was like deep fried chicken and then put with like a whiskey barbecue sauce, but it wasn't heavy. And when I pictured a chicken wrap, I'm thinking like your regular like tomatoes, lettuce, whatever. But it had like fresh vegetables in it and rice. So it felt like refreshing, even though it was like a deep fried chicken wrap. So anyways, enough of me salivating over that, and back to the gaming. Near and Far is the second in Red Raven's series of storybook type adventure games. And there was Above and Below, there was Near and Far, and there was Now or Never. And now I've only played the middle one, with Above and Below coming out again, but as a haunted version. So if you've never played any of these styles of games before, you get to play as an adventurer and you're going through a campaign story, but there's a bunch of different worker placement going on. Sometimes there's different character cards that'll give you actions or resources or that you can utilize as you wish to take on your travels. And mostly you're trying to engine build, gather characters, prepare yourself for your journeys onto the adventure area of the story. So there's the town and the adventure area where you still have a above surface area and a dwelling cave area. The game was probably about an hour or so of a teach, and it took us about 4 hours to play the game. So that's pretty much what we did for the afternoon, but it was really fun and playing with new people, and now I get to check another Red Raven game off of my list. After that, we pretty much just packed it up and we're ready for dinner. And oh my God. I ended up I can't remember what the other options were, but I got mushroom risotto, and I watched Top Chef. I know risotto is a risky item to ask for, but not only was it great, it was probably one of the best risottos I have ever had. It was just really satisfying. My mouth is watering just thinking of it right now. Hopefully it doesn't get caught on audio, but anyways, it was great. And while I was doing that, they actually had another event for a Jubensha. And as well, I talked about last year, one of my favorite experiences was being introduced to Jubensha. If you ever have a chance, you should go try it. Changeling Gaming Events has started having that as one of the events that you could sign up for. And I am looking forward, hopefully, to getting to do one of those again in the future. It's like, if you like Blood on the Clocktower, it makes Blood on the Clocktower look like a baby social deduction game. So Jubensha, it's another social deduction type of game, but there is a lot more depth, a lot more story. It's not just like one little murder mystery. It's murder mystery and Blood on the Clocktower combined together. So after dinner, we had a few more games. So there were 2 different sessions of Dungeons and Dragons. One was done by Nick, who does Dragons and Dining, did our dining. So now he's doing the Dungeons and Dragons. But he brought a specific RPG to do and to host for the event. And that's also part of what he does. So when I looked into it, he compiles a menu that goes with a different RPG that is being played. So the meals that you have are around and immerse you into the experience on a different level. And his food also, I mean, that in itself is worth anything and everything. But if you haven't tried any tabletop RPGs, I'd suggest trying it out with him or with Jeremy. Jeremy was doing another, I think, just a one-shot Dungeons and Dragons campaign in another room. So both of those were happening after dinner, as well as individuals who were just looking to play board games. And that is why I have Cat in the Box. Probably haven't played in over a year, but was all the rage at Gen Con 2022. It's a great trick-taking game. It's a bit abstract, so it can take a round so that someone will understand what's going on and how you accumulate your points. But the game itself, all the game cards are black cats, and they have no color. But you decide on a particular board that has green, blue, red, and yellow. And you'll decide by placing one of your tokens on a board to say what color the card that you're playing is during that round. And that's kind of the twist on the trick-taking game of Cat in the Box. There's different ways of scoring, and again, it can be quite abstract, but after your first round or two, you can get into it. I wouldn't suggest it at the 2-player count. There are special rules for that, but it does play better at higher player counts, which it goes up to 5. So it's a 2 to 5 player game. And the person with the most points at the end of the game wins the game. We didn't get to finish the game, but instead we did move into playing a round of Everdell. But it was really nice to get to that. And for this game, I realized that there was a Dized app tutorial. So I really like using Dized when I have the chance for new gamers, as it walks me through the setup if I haven't played the game in a while also playing us physically through the turn. So you can tell the app how many players are at the table, and then it'll tell you the different actions that you might select and explains each action as you're playing. So you're learning as you're playing, and there's absolutely no need for a rule book while you're using the app. So we used it for a little bit just so that I also was refreshed a bit, and then I was better able to continue teaching it as it had been a while since I played it. If you don't already know about Everdell, it's a worker placement and card collecting engine builder kind of game. Take one worker, put an action on the board, or play a card into your area, and those cards come with different powers. By the end of 3 seasons, you'll accumulate all your different points from cards, from events that you've won, and the person with the most points wins the game. It was a fully packed day, so I think some people, like myself, my brain was a little bit cooked by the end of Everdell. It was probably around midnight or just after midnight. There was also bonfires during the weekend, but everyone was busy playing their games inside. So there was that, and we said goodnight to everyone else and went to bed. Sadly, this means that there was only one more day left to the retreat. So after another good night's sleep, I woke up and packed my stuff, showered, put everything in the car so that everything was ready for when I could leave, so that I could just play games for the rest of the day. So after I packed the car, I said goodbye to my cabin, so sad, and spent the rest of the day in the cabin getting breakfast, which of course was also fantastic. So this breakfast, there was the continental items that were still there, but there was blueberry pancakes, I think there was oatmeal, and bacon and eggs. And then the rest of the day I spent going to play Blood on the Clocktower. And Jeremy had done a wild script. There were so many characters. So again, Blood on the Clocktower, there's a good team, there's a bad team, but every single character has a unique ability that applies during the game. And this one had even a character called the Atheist. The storyteller is usually a neutral member of the game, but in an atheist game, if there is an atheist character in play, then that could mean that we need to kill the storyteller and there are no evil characters in the game. However, if you kill the storyteller and there wasn't an atheist in the game, then the rest of the individuals lose the game, as obviously this could be a bluff from the evil team. So, formally, in Blood on the Clocktower, if you've never played, it is a social deduction game. In the game, depending on how many players there are, there will be a bunch of different types of tokens. So the main difference with these tokens is there is the blue good team and the red evil team. And you'll be picking a set of tokens from a bag anonymously for the beginning of the game. Some people will be good townsfolk, and townsfolk are just normal townsfolk. They're just good people trying to do good things. Then there are outsiders who their abilities can they do identify as good townfolk type people, but their abilities are not necessarily as helpful and kind of act as like a bridge between messing up the good players' information that they can gather throughout the game. There is also the evil team where there are minions and demons. So in a game, there's usually one demon who is like the head evil character that the good people are trying to suss out to kill in order to win the game. But there are also minions who are also evil team players, and they come with different abilities to also help the evil team. Again, every character in this game comes with a unique ability, and there are so many characters at this point that I will not go through them all. So what you're basically doing is if you're on the good team, you're trying to figure out ways to figure out who is on the evil team. So during the day, you're allowed to get up and socialize and talk to different people in order to have different meetings to discuss maybe if people want to tell you who their character is, if they want to give you a hint at what their ability is, when their abilities go off, if they want to say 3 different characters instead of saying just one character, in order to try to help other people deduce who's on the good team and who's on the evil team based on that information. If you're on the evil team, the demon will get 3 different bluffs to say which good characters are not in that game currently and can be communicated to his minions, to his or her or their minions, to utilize so that they can hide themselves during the day. Because at the end of discussion time, everyone comes back to the circle and the storyteller says that this is now discussion time in a public forum for everyone to discuss or not discuss what had happened and if anyone wants to nominate. If somebody wants to nominate someone for the day, they can only nominate once per day, and they will say who they nominated, explain why they nominated that person, and the person who has been nominated will be able to also have time to lay a defense. At the end of this situation, the storyteller will say that they will now start the vote. So everyone is given votes during the day, unless you are dead, which has a special feature. But everyone can utilize a vote by just raising their hand as the storyteller goes around the circle. If you raise your hand, you are putting a vote to killing this nominated individual during the day. They will go around the entire circle and then count up the amount of votes to the amount of players that are in the game and determine if a majority vote has been reached. If a majority has been met, then either everyone can say that's all we're going to nominate and go with that for the day, or somebody else can nominate a new individual and try to have the votes that are higher than the previously nominated individual. At the end of a day, someone will be murdered. And then at the end of the day, someone might be murdered. If the demon was killed during that nomination, then the storyteller says that the game is now over. If the demon was not killed at that point, we all go to sleep, which means everyone in the circle closes their eyes. And depending on your townsfolk or evil person's ability, you will be woken up at night and the storyteller will ask you certain questions about activating your ability for the night. So for the evil team, this means that this is usually the time that the demon is able to murder someone anonymously at nighttime. And then, of course, chaos ensues, and this process goes on until there are, I think, 3 players left during the day that there could be like one more nomination. And if the evil team's demon was not killed during that process, at the end of that day, the evil team win, and then the storyteller will go through what had actually occurred. So that is my very small attempt at trying to explain this very complicated game. Yeah, it was a fantastic game where I definitely was a little rusty, but there was so much chaos going on with the different types of characters that were in play. It made it really fun, and I think it's a tough script for people who maybe just got into the game. And there was one individual who I know had just played their first Blood on the Clocktower game that weekend, and they did end up being on the evil team. But I will say that it was not figured out until the very last day, and they were beside me and were the people that I trusted at the very outset of the game. So that was fun. Anyways, this game took a little while, and then everyone either went to go pack up or were catching their buses to leave to go home to Toronto or wherever they were from. It was a fantastic experience, and I think a really great way for me to experience my first board game retreat, as doing it in the winter. Yeah, it's cold, but it was maybe about 20 to 25 people in total, and it just felt like a weekend away with friends just playing board games. And having that many people gives you access to either splitting up into groups to play those smaller board games like I have done, or getting to play those big social deduction games that usually you don't get to play unless you go to a convention or sign up specifically for that event. I will probably be going back. And speaking of that, I believe that they're doing a summer retreat now that'll be open to more individuals to sign up. If you'd like to know more, you can follow them in the description and look at a whole bunch of different events. They have I think they've had almost 25 events already for the year. And there's only been 40 days, 50 days of the year so far. So that's wild. They work hard. But they do Dungeons and Dragons, TTRPGs, they do board gaming nights at different pubs and different restaurants. They do their Blood on the Clocktower scripts. And I also have to say, just in general, they are the only gaming event group people that had me actually go out into my own city and go to an event for. I like to also interact with individuals where they are aware of keeping a safe space. And most people, you'd hope and assume that would already be the case. They work with different groups and LGBTQ individuals that help make spaces and events specifically for LGBTQ safe space individuals and allies, obviously. Their previous event, I think, was almost 100 people for their board game extravaganza, which I think they'll be coming out with another one of those soon as well. But yes, I think their next retreat is planned the beginning of May, so just before my birthday. And having it be the summer, there'll probably be even more activities because they have the lake there. So they have kayaks, I think they have canoes, then you could swim and obviously hiking. But yeah, I was really glad I went. I took a longer way home because I realized that the highway out there was out to my old university, but that is besides the point. Anyways, that is my recap of the board gaming retreat weekend. I hope you enjoyed my little recap of that weekend. And also, if you happen to be in the GTA area and you end up signing up or going to one of their events, let me know. Thank you for tuning in for this full episode if you did. If not, well, this is a random spot to have ended up at. But thank you also to Changeling Gaming Events. Dragons and Dining Nick, and the wonderful people at Springwood Cottage Resorts. I look forward to seeing and gaming with you guys in the future. And I'll leave all of their links in the description below for you guys to find them yourselves because they are awesome. And so we'll see you next time on the Board Gamer Girl channel. I'm Natalie, and have a fantastic day. See you guys on the flippity flip. So now it's time to roll the travel monologue. Bleh. What happened? Um, you're weird, man. And let you, my hair is just, what is that? Anxiety. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Board Gamer Girl channel. Somebody is parking right next to me, and this is embarrassing. It's tea, and it's got anxiety on it. I don't know if I can, like, get it in any closer. Dave, that just fell off. Chamomile, old lady tea. Doing things differently as we're going to nowhere, apparently. Oh my god! What are they? Like, Dragons and Dining and Springwood Resort Gardens. They are not a. Why do I want to call them pylons? They're not pylons. You don't have pylons in this game. Smaller little baby. Who cares? So actually, just before we started playing Now or Never, oh my god. The screen isn't looking at me, so I can't tell if the battery will die.